everyone, welcome back to your PW English Medium 9th and YouTube channel. My name is Asa Suryavanshi, your biology tutor, your biology educator. Today we are here to discuss the very last chapter of class 10th, that is control and coordination. You remember that we have discussed already all the chapters which are coming in your class 10th boards. Now we are here with this last chapter, and I saw in the comment section many of you were requesting for this chapter, which is control and coordination. So yes, your wish is our command, and we are back with this amazing chapter, which is control and coordination. So basically we're going to discuss this chapter in detail, and yes guys, many of you have this idea also that this chapter is deleted. So remember, control and coordination is not at all deleted. I hope you all are ready. I hope there is a pen in your hand, there is a copy in your hand, and you are making all your notes along with me, because yes, if you're not making any notes, then there is no benefit. You should be having your copy and pen handy with you so that you are here with me, focused very well for the entire class. So without wasting much of our time, let's quickly get started. So the very first thing is what we're going to cover today. What will be the topic of discussion for today's class? So yes guys, it is a one-shot lecture. That is, you don't have to go anywhere for control and coordination. It's a one-shot destination. The language will be English. This whole class will be dealt purely in English only. So yes, you don't have to go here and there, study one time from this class, and yes, you are good to go for your exam. So but what is the discussion for today? What we're going to discuss today, let's set our goals very straight. So the very first thing which we're going to discuss is what is neuron, right? The nervous system, endocrine system, and coordination in plants. That is, we're going to discuss every single thing, right? Every single thing, be it the nervous system, be it the endocrine system, be it the coordination in the plants, the plant hormones, as well as movement in the plants. So everything will be taken care of. So the very first thing, what is this word control and coordination which comes in front of you? What is control? You are watching TV, you are watching a Netflix, and there is a remote in your hand. So once there is a remote in your hand, that remote is controlling everything. It can fast forward the movie, it can stop the movie, or maybe it can start the movie as well. Similarly, in our body also, everything is in control. What do I mean by that? So everything is in regulation. For example, here I am talking. I can stop talking. I can start to talk. I can slow down. Or maybe I can increase my speed as well, or the volume or the pitch. I can do that. So everything is in a regulation. So this power to regulate, by which we can start something, stop something, or maybe slow down something, this is called as control. So control is nothing. Control is nothing but the power of restraint and regulation by which something can be started, slowed down, or stopped. So this is nothing but your control. Now the second word is coordination. Second word is coordination. Let's say guys, this is my pen and suddenly just fell on the ground. It falls on the ground. Then what happens? I am going to see it, then I'm going to bend it, and then I'm going to grab it. So what is happening? Did you see? Just to pick a pen, just to pick a pen, who all is working? Let's say my eyes are working to spot that pen, right? My hands are working so as to grasp that pen, and also my back and my legs are working so as to bend and pick up that pen, isn't it? So different organs here, they are coordinating together, functioning together so as to produce a particular response. So that is nothing but coordination, so which is working together of various organs of the body in a proper manner, right? Now this is a coordination. Two words clear: controlling everything, coordinating everything, right? So before we start this chapter, there are various terms which comes in our contact, and we should be knowing the meaning of these terms, right? Though no one exactly are going to ask you that what do you mean by this particular word, they are not generally going to ask you a definition, but we must be knowing the meaning of these words, because if you look into your book, you're going to find these words somewhere or other, and generally we get confused. What do we exactly mean by it? So it's very, very important that we must be knowing the meaning of all of these terms. So the very first thing is stimulus. The very first thing is stimulus. Now, what is stimulus? What is stimulus? So when I see the word stimulus, it is, for example, let's say you see a dog barking at you, right? You're seeing a dog barking at you, or maybe you are sitting in a room and suddenly the light is not there, the fan is not working, right? So basically, electricity is cut off. So basically, yes, the fan is not working and it's very hot temperature, right? So fan is not working, or maybe a dog is barking at you, or maybe let us say you are going to a kitchen and you find a hot object lying there. Just imagine this is hot. Obviously this is not, I am holding it perfectly. Let's say you go to a kitchen and suddenly you see a hot object. So all of these are nothing but stimulus. Stimulus can be an agent, can be a factor which initiate a response in your body. Now, what do I mean by this term? For example, what will be the response once you touch a hot object? You will remove your hand. You'll be like, this will be your response, right? But what happens when you see a dog barking at you? What will be your response once you see a dog barking at you? You are going to run. You're going to run. And no, I'm not talking about those cute dogs. I'm talking about those devil dogs, right? Generally, people get scared. Or generally, maybe you see a snake, right? So what is your response? You will run away from it. Let's say the light is not there. The fans are not working. So what will happen? It will be too hot and you're going to sweat. So stimulus is a chemical, is an agent, is a factor which produces a reaction in your body, which produces a response in your body. For example, the hot object, that hotness of object was a stimulus. The barking of a dog was a stimulus, right? Temperature is hot, a stimulus. And it initiated a response. What will be the response once you touch a hot object? Removal of the hand, right? This is nothing but a response, a reaction in response to a stimulus. A dog is barking, you running is again a response, a reaction. Temperature increased, a stimulus, the response to it will be producing sweat. So stimulus is an agent, a factor, a chemical or a change which brings about a reaction in the body, which produces a reaction, a response in your body. Then what is response? Response, I told you, it is a reaction with respect to the stimulus. It is a reaction with respect to a stimulus. Clear? Stimulus which produces a response, and response is a reaction to a stimulus. Clear these words? Now the second word is receptor. What is receptor? Let's say, guys, I have ordered something from any food delivery app, right? Zomato, Swiggy, I have ordered something, and that order delivery person is coming right here to my door. He is ringing the bell, right? If I am not going to open the door and take that pizza box with me, I am not going to eat it. I won't be able to eat it. So in response to take that delivery and then use it, right? Are you able to relate what I am trying to say? So even if the delivery person is standing in the front of your door, ringing the bell, banging the door, and if you're not answering to that delivery person, if you're not going to the door, open the door, pick up that order, you won't be able to receive it or eat it. Similarly, yes, stimulus is there. The hot object is there. Barking of the dog is there. Temperature is increased. But your body must be able to receive this stimulus. Receiving it. Just like the delivery person is coming with the food, you have to receive the food in response to eat it, right? Isn't it? Similarly, if temperature is increasing, if you have to produce the sweat, your body must be able to receive this information, this input which is coming on the hot object. Your body should be able to receive that, okay, this is hot, right? Your body must be able to see the dog who is barking at you, hear it. Similarly, so that is receptor. What is a receptor? Receptor is the thing which actually receives the particular stimulus, right? So receptor can be, just a second. So receptor, yes, so receptor can be a cell, can be a tissue, or an organ which is capable of receiving the stimulus, right? It receives the stimulus. Now guys, see, you see a dog barking at you, right? So the information like is received by the receptor. Let's say your eyes have seen it, your ears have heard it, or let us say in this case this bottle, right? You go to your kitchen and you find a object which is hot. As soon as you touch it, you remove the hand. But what happens? Why are you removing the hand? What is happening behind it? So the temperature is hot here. This hot temperature is nothing but the stimulus, right? Now, who receives the stimulus? Obviously, your hand receives this information that this is hot. So, your hand must be having some receptor. Your hands have some receptor. Okay, the information is received. Now, we are removing the hand. This is a response. Removal of the hand is response. But who decides? Who is deciding that you have to remove your hand? Who is deciding that that dog is going to hurt you and you have to run? Who is going to make the decision? The decision will be made by our nervous system, and specifically our brain and spinal cord. Our spinal cord and brain decides that, okay, you have to run, or maybe you have to remove your hand, or you have to spit. Right, all these decisions will be made by your nervous system. We're going to discuss the nervous system in today's class in very much detail. But remember, this information from your receptor, that is from your hand, it must go to your nervous system. It must go to your nervous system, right? How this information will travel? How this information will be traveling to your nervous system? The information will be traveling with the help of some networks, with the help of some wire-like structures called as neuron. You have heard this name many times. Neuron is also called as the nerve cell. So from my hand, that is the receptor. Stimulus is the hot object. Receptor present in my hand to detect that this is hot. So yes, the receptor. From the receptor, the information will be taken by the neurons to the nervous system. Okay, now nervous system is going to decide this is hot. If you are not going to remove your hand will be burnt. So all this decision will be made by the nervous system. So nervous system is nothing but just like your CPU, right? CPU of a computer. It processes all the information. Right? So it has processed, now it has decided that you have to remove your hand. But again, who is this? Response should be made. This will be a response, right? So information must come back to your hand also. Yes, nervous system has decided that you are removing your hand, but the information must come back to your hand also, right? That you are removing it. So basically, this is nothing but a movement. Which tissue helps in bringing a movement? Do you remember your 9th class tissue chapter? Yes, it is muscular tissue, right? Muscles help in the movement. So this information must come back again to your muscles so that you're removing it, right? So this is nothing but the effector, right? This is nothing but the effector. Effector is the one which produces a response. I'm going to repeat all of this so as to it will make a sense in a complete flow, right? Now, stimulus is the hot object. In this case, the hotness of the object. Receptor is present in your hand which receive the information. Then From the receptor, the information will travel to the nervous system. Now, information travels in the form of current, right? Just like, for example, if I switch off this, there is a switch for the fan. If I switch off this switch, what will happen? The fan will go off, right? If I switch off the light won't be there, right? But how the information traveled? The information traveled through the wires, but in the form of current, isn't it? Yes, there are wires, but how the information travels in the wires? In the form of current. Similarly, from my hand to the nervous system, information will be traveling in the form of current, and that is called as impulse. That is called as impulse. So impulse is nothing but the electrical current through which an information is traveled. And lastly, the effector. Clear all this term, all these terms are clear. So as soon as this hot object, which is the stimulus, you touch your hand, so what will happen? Your hand will have receptor will receive that this is hot. Then the information will be traveling through a neuron in the form of current to your nervous system, who is going to decide that you have to remove it. Again, the information will come back to the muscles of your hand so that your muscles move, right? Again, the information will be coming back in the form of current. So the muscles in this case is a effector, right? If I see another examples, for example, yes, you see a dog. In that case, once you're running, so your muscles again producing this response. What is the response? Response is running. And who produces this response? Obviously, muscle. In the other case where the temperature was increasing, just in the case the electricity is not there, then what will happen? You will sweat. This is your response. Who produces sweat? Sweat gland produces the response. So again, in that case, the gland is a effector. Effector is the one, it can be a muscle, can be a gland, can be a tissue which is going to produce the response, right? Which is going to produce the response. Are these terms clear, right? Maybe you can think of another example also. For example, you are sitting in here and you'll be like, let's study from asthma, and suddenly there is a amazing smell coming. Let's say your mother is cooking a pizza or pasta, your favorite dish in the kitchen, right? What will be response? Okay, we'll study later. First, go to the kitchen and eat it. And eat it. This will be your response on receiving the information of the good smell. But your brain is going to think also, right? Your brain is going to decide, no, I have exam of your class 10th exam tomorrow, and in that exam, the control and coordination is there. So your mind is going to decide, I can eat later, maybe I should study first, then I will eat it. So similarly, all this information will be processed, whether to go there and eat that pasta, macaroni or whatever, or study here and study. Sit here and study. So all of that processing will be done by the brain, and different responses can be there. Okay? Making sense with all these terms, right? Let's move forward then. Now we have different types of receptor. For example, yes, I told you there are receptors in my hand. Similarly, there are various types of receptors which are present in different body parts and which are going to detect different sensations. So basically, all these receptors will be present in our sense organs, right? So these receptors will be generally present in our sense organs. Let's discuss all the different types of receptors. Are you all ready? Are you all with me? Are you all able to understand what I am saying? Well, let's go. Gustatory receptor, the very first receptor, it is present in our tongue, and obviously it is going to detect the taste, right? So location, we can say tongue, and it detects the taste. Then we come to olfactory. Olfactory is the one which is present in our nose, and it detects the smell, that pizza, pasta smell, right? So we can say present in our nose, detect the smell. Then auditory receptor, I always say, am I audible? Am I visible? So audible is present in the ear, and obviously it's going to detect the sound, right? So we can say it will be present in the ear and it will detect the sound. Next is thermo. Thermo is related to the temperature. The temperature, right? Once I was receiving the hand on touching a hot object, so obviously it will be present in my skin. So thermo present in the skin, and it will be detecting obviously the temperature. Thermo word is always related to the temperature. Next we have photo. Photo is related to the word light, and it will be present in our eyes. Detect light. Photo word, photosynthesis. Photo always related to the light. So we can say yes, it will be present in the eyes, and it is going to detect the light. Clear? Clear with all of these receptors, making sense to all of you? Okay, so basically if you look into all of these receptors, can you find any two receptors which are related? Any two receptors which are little bit related to each other? Can you think of any two receptors? So yes, the answer is the gustatory and olfactory. Both of these detect the chemical sensation, chemicals, right? Maybe from the taste, maybe through the smell. Okay, this is gone. Let me rewrite it again. Yes, both of them detect the chemical sensations. For example, if you taste any food, so not only that you are tasting the food, obviously if it is going to smell well, it's going to smell amazing, right? Isn't it? Why do you like pasta so much? Why do you feel like to eat the pasta? Because the smell is also good. Suppose if something is smelling like very, very bad, will you feel a desire to eat it? Obviously the answer is no. So when I see a word flavor, so when I see that, okay, that the flavor is really good. So flavor is not just the taste, but also smell of the food. So if it smells good, you feel like to eat it, right? Both of these sensations are related. Why I am saying that? Have you ever experienced that you are having cold and your nose is blocked? Your nose is blocked because of the cold. So if your nose is blocked, can I say at that time my olfactory receptors are not yet working? They are not working as well as they were working when you were normal. So now since the olfactory receptors are not working pretty well, so at that time once you're having the cold, at that time you will not even feel like the taste of the food having so good. The taste of the food will not be as good as once you were not having the cold. That is, we can see these two receptors, they are related. These two sensations, they are related, right? Because we can say a flavor is a combination of the smell as well as taste. So basically once you have cold, then the taste of the food, the flavor of the food will not be as good as once you were not having that cold. Is it making sense to each one of you what I try to make sense from this particular slide? Clear? Let's move ahead. Okay. Now, how do we control and coordinate? How do we control everything? How do we coordinate different body parts? How does this happen? Obviously, it will be different with respect to the unicellular organism. Uni means singular, cellular means cell, having only one cell in the body. And we all know the example very well here, which is amoeba. So amoeba is a unicellular organism, and if I look into the amoeba looks something like this, right? This is an amoeba. Now how amoeba responds to a stimulus? How it will respond to a stimulus? Obviously, amoeba will either move towards the stimulus or move away from the stimulus, right? It does not have a proper brain. Brain is an organ. How can a single cell have an organ? Obviously, that is not possible. So, basically, amoeba will simply show the movement by moving towards the stimulus. Either it will move towards the stimulus or away from the stimulus, right? Suppose this is the stimulus, this is the food, amoeba either will move towards it or move away from it, right? So whatever be it the stimulus, it will either move towards or move away. Now, such type of response where the amoeba is moving towards or away, such type of response is called as taxis. Such type of response is called as taxis. Okay, where the organism is moving either towards or away from the stimulus. Such type of response is called as taxis. Making sense? Making sense? Let's move to the multicellular organism. Obviously, in the case of multicellular organism, a very famous organism is Hydra. So Hydra is having the neurons, the nerve cell. It is having the nervous system, but the neurons are completely diffused in the body. It will not have a brain. It is having neurons, the nerve cell, which are diffused throughout the body. But remember, there is no brain. No brain. Cross means no, right? Cross means absent. Cross means absent, and we can say yes, the neurons are nothing, the nerve cells. They are diffused in the body. They are present all over in the body, forming a network. Right? You could see a network of neurons here. Right? But what about more complex multicellular organism like us, like humans? What happens in us? What do we have? We do have brain, right? Obviously, we do have brain. So we come under the category of control and coordination in human beings, that is complex multicellular organism. Obviously, our body is much more complex than a hydra. Now, if someone says, okay, you are a brainless person, obviously say them just go and study control and coordination first. We do have a brain, right? Okay. By the way, so control and coordination, if we talk about in higher animals, so in case of humans, we opt for two strategies. That is a nervous system, obviously where the neurons will be involved, and endocrine system, where these are the different endocrine glands, which you can see maybe here. And yes, endocrine glands secrete the hormone, right? So we're going to study all of these later. Let's not go into detail very much here. Just remember, nervous system where neurons will be involved, endocrine system where the hormones will be involved, right? Let's discuss each one of them one by one in very much detail. Obviously, first we will study nervous system, followed by the endocrine system. Is it making sense to all? Shall we proceed ahead? Okay. Now, why do we need the nervous system? What all it does, right? Obviously, we have seen it will control and coordinate. So, what all it is controlling? So, it is controlling the voluntary activities as well as the involuntary activities. What do you mean by voluntary activities? The activities which are under your conscious control, which you can control. For example, I can control the movement of my hand. I can control this, right? I can control this. So all of this are voluntary activity. For example, me walking. For example, me running. All of this I can control. So these are voluntary activities. What are involuntary activities? Obviously, which are not under our conscious control. For my heart beating, can I control the beating of my heart? No. For example, the movement of food in the alimentary canal, can I decide, okay, now the food goes from the stomach to the small intestine? Can I control it? No. So all of these activities which are not under my conscious control, they comes at the category of involuntary activities. So yes, nervous system controls both voluntary as well as involuntary activities. We can remember some examples here. For example, walking and running. And here also we can remember few examples here, that is beating of heart. Right? It is not under our conscious control. Okay, let's move little bit ahead. Now we have already seen it, what is the nervous system consisting of? So this nervous system consists of obviously the cell, and the cell name is neuron. Just like the structure and function unit of kidney was nephron, this is neuron. Many students get confused between neuron and nervous system. Neuron is the part of the nervous system. Nephron is a part of your excretory system. It is present in the kidney. What is the structural and functional unit of your body? It is cell, the thing which controls everything, the which does every function of your body basically, right? Similarly, what is the structural and function unit? We can say karta dharta, which does all the work for the nervous system, and that structural and function unit is none other than neuron or a nerve cell. Neuron, or also called as nerve cell. And we already know that this neuron, it is the longest cell of the body. The longest cell of the body. And you just saw that these neurons, they'll be present throughout the body. They form a network, right? They form a network throughout the body, and that what they're going to do, they're going to conduct the information from one part of the body to another. So these neurons, they are the longest cell, and they conduct the information from one part of body to another, and they form a network throughout the body, right? So they form a network throughout the body and conduct the information, obviously, and the information will be conducted in the form of electrical current, right? So the information will be conducted in the form of electrical current, which is called as the impulse, so as to control and coordinate the different body. Clear? This whole slide is clear to you all. Shall we move ahead? Okay. Now, if we look into the neuron, I've already told you that it is the structural and functional unit, and also it is the longest cell of the body. We have already seen it, right? Let's try to discuss little bit more about the neuron with the help of the diagram of it, right? So if I draw a neuron here, let me draw it for you guys. So basically, if we look into the neuron, let me draw it, and then maybe you can draw it with me so that you also know how to draw it, because generally, yes, in exams, they can ask you to draw a neuron diagram. Definitely a diagram can come of neuron to draw it, right? So maybe you can practice it with me, try to draw it with me, right? Okay. Okay, so I have almost completed the diagram of a neuron here. So this is the one which you see in your NCERT books also, and there have been many questions in your previous years which have been asked from the neuron, right? Shall we discuss it? So the very first part which you see here, this very first part is called as the very first part is called as the cell body, or also called as the cyton, or also called as the soma. The very first part is cell body, or the cyton, or the soma. The one which is having the nucleus and the cytoplasm around it, the nucleus and obviously the cytoplasm around it, right? So it has obviously, what will be there? It will be having the nucleus and the cytoplasm. Now, yes, obviously, since it is the cytoplasm, it will be having all the different cell organelles, right? Maybe the mitochondria will be there, ER will be there, ribosomes will be there, all the different cell organelles will be there, except of one cell organelle, which is centriole, the centrosome. It will not be there. Why it is not present? Because yes, remember, centriole is a structure which helps the cell to divide. So definitely we can say the neurons cannot divide. They cannot make more neurons, right? So we can say have all cell organelles except centrosome. So we can mention here, therefore, the neurons do not divide. They do not divide. So if you have brain injury, therefore we say it is very deadly, it's very harmful, because yes, these neurons can't be made more, right? Next, they have one more thing. They have this mass of RER. They have the mass of RER. What is mass of RER called as? So this mass of RER, by the way, what is RER? RER full form is rough endoplasmic reticulum. That is, on the endoplasmic reticulum there are ribosomes attached. Ribosomes are attached on the surface of the ER. What is the function of the ribosome? To make the proteins. So therefore, if Nissl granules is nothing but your mass of RER, then what will be the function of Nissl's granules? So yes, the function will be protein synthesis, help in protein synthesis. Is it making sense? Protein synthesis. Making sense, right? Cell body having the nucleus as well as the cytoplasm, not able to divide and have the Nissl's granules. Then from this cell body, you see these small branched processes are arising. These small branched processes, they are called as dendrites. They are called as dendrites. We can mention them here, right? Or maybe we can mention here only. These are dendrites. So dendrites, they are like branching of a tree, hence the name dendrites or dendron, coming from the word, yes, having the T-like branches, tree-like branches. So dendrites can be one or many. They are branched. They are small. You could see they are small processes. And from there, where they are coming from the cyton. From the cyton, they are arising. Do they have Nissl's granules? Yes, dendrites also have Nissl's granules in them. Next we come that from the cyton, there is a long, it is not branched, long single process, which is cylindrical process arising from the cell body, and this long process is called as axon. So from the cell body, axon also arises. Axon also arises. So we can say axon is nothing but a single long process arising from the cyton, the cell body, right? And towards the end, obviously this we can call it as the axon terminal, right? The end part, maybe we can mention it as the axon terminal. And towards the axon terminal, the end of the axon, we are going to find this spherical structures, these bulbous structure, bulb-like structures. These bulb-like structures are called as synaptic knob. They are called as synaptic knob. What are synaptic knob? They are nothing but the bulb-like structures present towards the end of a neuron. Now, yes, I told you through a neuron, the information travels. The information travels in the form of electrical current, which is called as the impulse. Now, which part will receive the information first, right? This part, this part, this part. Which part will receive the information first? Remember, it is the dendrites which will receive the information first. Dendrites will give the information to the cell body. Cell body will give the information to axon, and axon towards the end that is axon terminal, or maybe we can say synaptic knob. So always this order will remain same, and it will be unidirectional. It is not like, yes, the information will go from dendrites to cell body, then to axon, then back to cell body, back to dendrite. No, it is a unidirectional flow of the current. Also, we can see over the axon, you could see some overlapping, or we can say some enveloping is there. The axon will be enveloped by a fatty substance. This axon is enveloped by a fatty substance, right? Just imagine if I, for example, could you see this watch? It is like enveloping my hand. Similarly, we have this envelope called as myelin sheath. It is a fatty substance. It is made up of fatty substance, which is enveloping the axon. Clear? This whole thing is clear to you? Yes or no? Shall we move ahead? So I can say yes. We can say yes that unidirectional flow of impulse. How the impulse move from the dendrites towards the end of a neuron, and it will be unidirectional only, in one direction only. Let's write it down very quickly. Yes, it will be starting from where? It will be starting from the dendrites. Then the information will go to the cell body. Then the information will go to the axon. And finally, it will be moving towards the end, that is axon terminal. Or we can say the nerve ending, the end of the neuron. Clear? Making sense to all how this information is traveling? Let's move little bit ahead. Now, there are basically 3 types of neuron, right? For example, once you were touching the hot object, so the neuron which takes the information from the receptor in my hand to the nervous system, right? To the nervous system, that neuron is called as the sensory neuron. Sensory neuron is the neuron which conducts the information from the receptor to the central nervous system. Why have I mentioned the word central nervous system? Because it is present in the center of my body. In the center we have brain. In the center we have our spinal cord. So since this is present in the center of the body, it will be called as central nervous system. So the neuron which conducts the impulse from the receptor to the central nervous system, this neuron you could see here will be a sensory neuron. What is a motor neuron then? Motor neuron is the one which will be carrying the information from the central nervous system back to my effector so that my hand can be removed, right? So basically, yes, we can say here that motor neuron will conduct the information from our central nervous system to the effector. And lastly, what is a connector neuron, relay neuron and interneuron? See, yes, from my hand, from the receptor, the information has gone to your central nervous system. Now your central nervous system was deciding whether to remove the hand or whether not to remove the hand. Who is deciding that? What is present within the central nervous system? Relay neuron is present. So I can say it is the one which is present in the central nervous system, right, which is going to act like a processing unit. It will be processing the information, processes the information and then decide whether to remove the hand or not. It will basically integrate it. It will basically integrate it. Integrating unit. Clear? Making sense? What do I mean by all of these things? So sensory neuron which takes the information to the central nervous system. Within the central nervous system we have relay neuron which is going to decide whether to remove your hand or not, whether to produce the sweat or not, the decision maker, whether to study here and go and have that pasta, the decision maker will be the connector neuron, which will be present within our central nervous system. And then who will bring the information, whatever the decision is, that will be brought by the motor neuron towards the effector, right? So basically I can say connector neuron will be present between the sensory and motor. It will be present between the two. So I can say it is a link between, it is acting like a link between the sensory and motor neuron. Sensory and motor neuron. Clear? Clear? Is it making sense to you all? Shall we move ahead towards the next topic? Right? Chalo. Now, what all can nervous system do? Basically, yes, if it can initiate the impulse and it can transmit the impulse, right? The information can be traveled, the information travels in the form of current, that is impulse, right? So the nervous system has the capacity to generate that impulse and then to transmit it. So yes, it has the property of electrical excitability, which means it can generate the impulse and then it can conduct it, that is, it can transmit it from one place to the another in your body. Clear? And how the information travels, I have already told you. So if there is any change in the environment, if there is any stimulus which is there, any change, any stimulus will be there, they will be passing through the neuron, that is from the dendrite to the cell body and finally to the axon and towards the end. We have seen it, how the information travels. But what happens? What happens between two neurons? Let us say, guys, this is, let's say, my dendrite part. This is, let's say, my axon. This is the synaptic knob, right? I am drawing a very rough diagram so that you just relate what is happening. See? This is one neuron, this is another neuron. This is the first neuron, this is the second neuron. Now, how the information, yes, we all know that the information travels in the form of current from the dendrites to the cell body to the axon and towards the axon terminal. But how this is the electrical impulse, obviously. This is the electrical current which moves from the dendrite towards the end. But how this information travels from one neuron to another? How this information travels from one neuron to another? Through electrical current only? The answer is no. It will not be traveling in the form of electrical current because there is a gap. There is a gap and this gap is so huge that electrical current cannot jump from one neuron to another. Then how will information move? That we are going to see this right now. So basically this junction between the two neuron is called as synapse. The junction between the two neuron is called as the synapse. And remember, this will again, now I'll be like, ma'am, why you have drawn again this only? Remember, it will be the dendrite which will receive the information first. So you can't draw it like this. Can you draw it like this? No. Information can't travel like this because it will be always the dendrite which receive the information. This will remain safe from the dendrite to the cell body to the axon terminal. So it will be always the second neuron facing will be the dendrite only. A question has been asked. They can show you 4 diagrams and they're going to ask you the right representation, right? I hope you can draw the right representation. They're going to ask you which one is correct. But the question is how this information travels across a synapse. You know the synapse is the junction between the axon ending of one neuron and the dendrite of the other. Axon ending of one, dendrite of the other. Now what happens towards the axon? Let's have a look at it, right? So this junction is called as the synapse. This junction is called as the synapse. This is the synapse. This junction is called as the synapse. Now, what happens at the synapse? Let's have a look at it. Let's say this is the dendrite. This is the axon terminal of first neuron. Let's say this is the axon terminal of first neuron. And this is the dendrite of the second neuron. Dendrite of second neuron, isn't it? This is the second neuron and this is the dendrite. So this junction, just this junction between the two, this is called as the synapse. So what is actually present in the axon terminal? What is the end of the axon? We call it as the synaptic knob. So can I say here synaptic knob, the bulbous structure, the bulb-like structure, the synaptic knob? So yes, this is the synaptic knob of first neuron. These are the dendrites of the second neuron. So within the synaptic knob, we have these structures which are called as synaptic vesicles. We have this structure called as synaptic vesicles. Okay, so these structures which you're going to find within the synaptic knob, these structures are called as these bag-like structures. They are called as synaptic vesicles. Synaptic vesicles, the bag-like structures present within the synaptic knob. These synaptic knob. What do these synaptic vesicles have? Synaptic vesicles have these things called as neurotransmitters. It have these things called as neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters. Now what happens? Okay, is it making sense up till now? So let's say the information is traveling, and the information is traveling in the form of current from the dendrite to the cell body to the axon, and it has reached towards the end, that is the synaptic knob. So once the electrical impulse reaches towards the synaptic knob, then what happens? These synaptic vesicles, they will go and they will fuse with the membrane of the neuron. It will fuse here. These vesicles will fuse with the membrane, and what happens when this fuses with the membrane? It will throw out all the contents outside. It will throw out all the contents outside like this. It will fuse with it, and in turn it will throw out all the contents in this gap between the two neurons. In this gap between the two neurons, and this gap, by the way, it is called as a synaptic cleft. This gap is called as synaptic cleft. So once these neurotransmitters are entering into the synaptic cleft, they will go and then bind with the receptors present on the second neuron. They will go and bind with the receptors present in the second neuron, and an impulse will be initiated in the second neuron. Okay, making sense? Let me repeat it again for you, right? So basically we have this junction between the two neurons, which is called as the synapse. You're going to find the synaptic knob of first neuron and the dendrite of the second neuron. In the synaptic knob, you're going to find these vesicles, these bag-like structures called as synaptic vesicles, which have these chemicals called as neurotransmitters. As the electrical impulse reaches the end of a neuron, these synaptic vesicles go and fuse the membrane of the neuron, as a result throwing all of the content in the gap called as synaptic cleft. So all these content means neurotransmitters are now present in the gap. They then will bind with the receptor. So it's like an information has received. For example, I have to go and tell my sister who is sitting in the other room that, start making pasta. Anything I have to tell. So I'll be going, I'll be knock on the door and then we'll come back. So this is our code. As soon as she receives that knock, she knows that I have to start making pasta now. Similarly, this neurotransmitters, they are acting like a door knock, right? So basically, once these neurotransmitters, they bind on the receptor, now this neuron knows, okay, I have to start the impulse here, right? So it is like an information has come to the second neuron that I have to start the impulse, right? I hope it makes sense to each and every one of you. This is what is mentioned here in the diagram also, if you see. Right, let's read what is written here. When the electrical impulse reaches the axon ending, neurotransmitters are released across the gap between the two neurons, and neurotransmitters will bind to the receptors present on the second neuron dendrite, and hence impulse initiated in the second neuron. Clear? Making sense to you all of this? Now one thing I want to tell you, that is the information traveling in the form of current only? The information in the nervous system across the neuron, does it travel in the form of current only? The answer is no. It is electrochemical. Why I am saying electrochemical? Electrical throughout the neuron, and at the synapse it will be in the form of chemicals. It will be form of the chemicals. So I can say it is a electrochemical at the synapse. Electrical throughout the neuron. Okay, making sense that the information traveling through a nervous system will not only be electrical, it will be electrochemical, electrical as well as in the form of chemicals, chemicals only at the synapse, right? Let's move ahead. Next is neuromuscular junctions. Please correctify it, guys. This will be your junctions, not functions, okay? This will be your junctions and not functions, okay? We are just correcting it. Okay, so neuromuscular junction. So if that junction is between two neurons, we call it as the synapse. But if the junction is between a neuron and a muscle, we call such type as neuromuscular junction. So the junction between the neuron and the muscle. Neuron and the muscle. Remember it. If it is between two neurons, synapse. If it is between the neuron and the muscle, neuromuscular junction. Making sense to you all up till here? Can we move ahead? Let's move ahead then. Next we come to the reflex action. What is a reflex action? Few moments back I told you I am removing my hand on touching a hot object. This is nothing but a reflex action. A sudden response to something, an involuntary response to the something. We call such action as the reflex action. So reflex action is a spontaneous, automatic, mechanical response to a stimulus. Why I am saying spontaneous, automatic? Because remember, it is an involuntary response, right? Not under my conscious control. Not under my conscious control, right? Obviously the very first thing is withdrawal of hand on touching an hot object. Once you blink the eyes, if you look into the light, if suddenly a light falls on you, you'll be doing like this, right? Salivation on seeing a food. Knee jerk is, let's say I am sitting like this, a person is sitting like this, right? A person is sitting like this. Okay, and if a doctor is going to hit a hammer around the knees, what will be the response? This person is going to move the leg forward, right? Let's say this is the knee. If someone is going to hit here, the person is going to move the leg here. Okay, making sense to you? This is generally knee jerk. If you put a hammer across the knee, the person will be moving the leg forward. This will be the knee jerk. Next, we have dilation of the eye pupil to look in the dark and vice versa. So obviously, if you are in the dark, you want to see more clearly. So your pupils are the aperture through which the light enters. So we can say, yes, the pupils are going to dilate. That is, the diameter increases. Diameter increases so that you can see more, and obviously once you are too much in the lighted room, you'll be like doing this, right? Why do you do this? Because you want the pupil to constrict, the diameter to decrease, because obviously you do not want that much light to enter into your eye, right? That is why the vice versa, coughing, sneezing and yawning are also coming into this. Clear? Let's discuss this in more detail. Now, what is a reflex action? We have already seen. Now, what happens in a reflex action, which I have already told you few moments back. Once you touch a hot object, that is nothing but the stimulus. So, from here, yes, stimulus will be there. Stimulus is hotness of that object. Then, who is going to receive the stimulus? Hand. The receptors present in your hand. Right? So, obviously, the receptor for the heat and pain will be there in your skin, which is going to receive the information. This will be carried via sensory neuron to the central nervous system. It will be carried by a central nervous system to the central nervous system via the sensory neuron. Within the central nervous system, who is going to decide that you have to remove the hand or not? It will be decided by the relay neuron, and then relay neuron will give the information to the motor neuron, which will bring it to the effector so as to move. There are some arrows drawn here, you cannot miss it. Sensory neuron, motor neuron, relay neuron, central nervous system, and obviously the effector. Now what happens? Let me rewrite it for you guys. So basically, yes, we have stimulus, right? The stimulus will be received by receptor. Where is receptor present? Receptor of heat and pain will be present basically where? In your hand, in the skin. Right? Then from the receptor, the information will move to sensory neuron. Sensory neuron will carry the information from the receptor to the central nervous system. The another name of sensory neuron is afferent neuron. Afferent neuron is another name of sensory neuron. So sensory neuron carry the information from your receptor to your central nervous system. To your central nervous system, because it is present in your center. Within the central nervous system, who is present there? Relay neuron. Then relay neuron will decide whether to remove your hand or not. Then relay neuron will give the information to motor neuron. To the motor neuron. Another name of motor neuron is efferent neuron. Efferent neuron. This is afferent, this is efferent. Then efferent neuron will give the information to the muscle here, that is the effector. To the effector, in this case, yes, it is a muscle. Making sense how the information, how the electrical current is traveling, starting first from the stimulus, then moving towards the receptor, who is going to receive it, from the receptor to the sensory neuron, then to the relay neuron, central nervous system, and to the motor neuron, and motor neuron will be giving the information to the effector, and effector will ultimately produce the response. So do you see this impulse is taking a path? It is taking a path, it is traveling a path. So this path traveled by the impulse during a reflex action, it is called as reflex arc. This is called as reflex arc. Reflex arc is nothing but the path traveled by, taken by the nerve impulse during the reflex action. Making sense to you all? Now guys, see, isn't it a scary emergency, a danger situation where you just have to remove the hand? If let's say I am not removing the hand and this object is too much hot, what will happen? What will happen? You will burn your hand, isn't it? So this response must be very quick. But your brain takes time to decide, right? For example, a few moments back I was telling you, you are sitting here, you have to decide either to study here and go have that pasta which your mother is cooking, but your brain decided, no, if I'm going to go, then I'm going to miss my tomorrow's exam. I will not be able to study. I will not be able to score good. Therefore, I should be sitting here and I should be studying. So whole of this information is actually integrating, it is processed based on your memories, based on your past experience, based on your decisions. It will be all be decided here in your brain. But if you're going to think so much while removing your hand, it is going to take ages to remove your hand. Obviously, you don't have that much time. You will end up burning your hand. So this response must be very quick, very quick. Therefore, remember, generally these reflex actions will be taken care by the spinal cord and not the brain. So here in the CNS, we're going to specially mention here spinal cord. Okay, spinal cord. Let me mention it here. Spinal cord. Okay, not the brain but the spinal cord. Therefore, it is mentioned spinal cord here because generally brain takes time to think. In that much time, it can cause so much danger to you. Therefore, we want it to be very, very fast, and hence we can say reflex action generally will be taken care by the central nervous system. But obviously, this message will be sent to the brain. A message will be sent to the brain that such sort of thing has happened. For example, now second time you go to a kitchen, your brain knows, okay, last time you touched the object, there was a pain in your hand and you were supposed to remove it. This sort of thing happened last time, so this time, no, you are not going to touch that hot object already. So yes, a message, a signal will be sent to brain. Remember that. So that was all about it. Let's move ahead now. Alright, moving towards the next topic, that is, we'll be taking the nervous system now in detail. So basically, nervous system is of two types, that is central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. CNS and PNS, right? If we talk about central nervous system, it is the main processing unit of the body which consists of the brain as well as the spinal cord, right? So which is present in the center. So I can say this is the main processing unit, main control and coordinating unit, right, which consists of the brain as well as the spinal cord. So this part here is the brain, this part here is the spinal cord. This is the brain and this is the spinal cord, the main central processing unit. But obviously our central processing unit needs to be in coordination with the body parts, right? That is the role of the peripheral nervous system, right? So peripheral nervous system is the one which we can say which is coordinating the central nervous system with the rest of the body, right? So the communication between the CNS and rest of the body is done by the peripheral nervous system. Now peripheral nervous system consists of two things, That is the cranial nerves and the spinal nerves. These are nothing but the nerves, right? Nerves are nothing but the collection of neurons, right? So if we talk about the nerves, the spinal and the cranial nerves, so the nerves which arise from the brain, they are called as cranial nerves. The nerves which are arising from the spinal cord, they are called as the spinal nerves. From the brain, cranial, from the spinal cord, spinal nerves. So if we talk about how many spinal nerves are there or how many cranial nerves are there, then we can say there are total 31 pairs of spinal nerves. That's give us total 62, right? But if we talk about the cranial nerves, we have 12 pairs of cranial nerves. We have 12 pairs, right? Clear? 12 pairs cranial nerve, 31 pair spinal nerves. Moving ahead, now we'll be taking each part in detail. That is now, first we will start from the central nervous system. We'll be taking the brain and then we will move towards the spinal cord. Let's start with the brain, which is obviously the main coordinator center of the body, which coordinate everything, which control anything, which command to the other body parts, right? So basically it is the control and command system of the body. So I can say it is the control and command system of the body. It controls everything, right? It is the main processing unit. Main processing unit of the body. Main processing unit of the body is your brain. Is it clear? Now further, this brain is divided into 3 parts that we're going to see one by one. But if we look into the brain is such an important thing, right? It is controlling everything. It is giving command to everything. It is coordinating different functions of the body. So it is such an important organ. So therefore, it needs some protection. That protection to our brain, to our spinal cord is done by some bony structure, right? So the very first thing, the bony structure which provides protection to the brain, it is called as the cranium, right? So I can say the bony structure providing protection. So if it is providing protection to the brain, then we call it as the cranium or the skull. The cranium, the bony box or the skull. Right? If we are talking about if it is protecting our spinal cord, if our spinal cord is protected, then we call it as the vertebral column or the backbone. Vertebral column or the backbone. Right? Is it making sense to you? So our central nervous system is very much important. It needs the protection and it is protected by some bony structure, that is the cranium in the case of the brain and vertebral column in the case of spinal cord. So it feels like our brain is wearing a natural helmet called as the cranium. Now what is the difference between the cranium and the skull? So you know you have bones in your face as well. Touch it. Are you able to feel it? Are you able to feel the bones in your face as well? So bones of the skull, right? So shall I say bone of your brain, that is the cranium. This is the cranium, right? And this is the facial bones. So facial bone along with the cranium is called as the skull. This is the cranium, this is the facial bones. Together they are called as the skull. Right? And the spinal cord, obviously simple, easy peasy, which is spinal cord is protected by the vertebral column or the backbone. right? Now coming to this part. Now basically our brain needs more protection. Our spinal cord needs more protection. So there are 3 membrane coverings which provide protection to the central nervous system. Yes, the outermost layer is obviously the skull, but beneath to that we have other protections also, that is dura mater, arachnoid and pia mater. We do something like this. What is this called as? We call it as a DAP. So remember DAP, dura mater the outermost, then arachnoid, then pia mater. So these three coverings which provides protection and present inside to the cranium, these are called as meninges. They are the membrane covering which provide protection. Membrane covering. There are 3 membrane coverings which are providing protection. Now these coverings, they will be present in both spinal cord as well as the brain. So it will be giving protection to both spinal cord as well as the brain, right? So instead of skull, in case of spinal cord, you're going to find the vertebral column. Rest 3 will remain same, right? So between the arachnoid and pia mater, between the arachnoid and pia mater, we have some space there, and that space is filled with a fluid called as cerebrospinal fluid. This space is filled with cerebrospinal fluid. Why we are calling it as the cerebrospinal fluid? Because it will be present in the cerebrum, that is, it will be present part of the brain. That is why cerebro, and spinal because it will be present in the spinal cord itself, right? Because I told you these 3 coverings will be present in the spinal cord also. So I can say yes, the CSF will also be present in the spinal cord. What is the function of it? It will obviously provide that support, as well as it is acting like a cushion. It is acting like a shock absorber. If any injury comes, obviously that will be dissipated in this fluid and it will not affect our brain, right? So I can say it provides the support. It provides the support, as well as it will do what? It will act as shock absorber cushion. Shock absorber cushion. Again, you cannot forget this also. It is very important. They can ask question from the CSF also. Shall we move ahead? I hope this protection part is clear. Let's move to the human brain 3 types. So basically the human brain is divided into 3 parts, and the 3 parts of human brain are forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain. Fore, mid and hindbrain. So you can see here this part, the major part is the forebrain, then we have this midbrain, and this large part is called as the hindbrain. We'll start with each one of them. Just see what are the basic parts present in all 3 of them. So forebrain further consists of 3 parts, that is, we have the olfactory lobe, followed by the cerebrum, followed by the diencephalon. So we have 3 parts further in the forebrain. Midbrain does not have any such part, and hindbrain again has 3 parts, that is pons feruli, cerebellum and medulla oblongata. Remember, you cannot forget these words, pons and medulla. If you don't want to remember the whole word medulla oblongata, ma'am, it is so tough. Just remember medulla, just remember pons, right? It will be good to go. Right? This is done. This is done. Shall we discuss each part one by one? We'll start first with the forebrain. So the forebrain is the main thinking part of our brain, the main thinking part. Here all the judgment will be taken. Here all the thinking will be taken care of. Here we can see if you are able to solve any mathematical question, it will be all done by your forebrain. Also it has different centers for the sight, for the smell, right? So basically we can say forebrain is the part which is the main thinking part of the brain. Also, we can say it has the separate area which are specialized for hearing, smells and sight. Right? So basically, yes, that was about the forebrain. Forebrain further has three parts, that is olfactory lobe, cerebrum and diencephalon. Let's discuss each one of them one by one. The very first thing is olfactory. So I've already told you, whenever you say this word olfactory, it is related to smell. So obviously it is responsible for the chemical sense of smell. So it will be responsible for chemical sense of smell. Olfactory lobe. Second is cerebrum. So this is the cerebrum. So if we look into the brain, right, once you look into the brain, it looks like a walnut. It looks like a de-shelled walnut. So as if the shell has been removed of a walnut. So the major part which you see of a brain, the major part which is seen of a brain, this is nothing but the cerebrum. So I can say cerebrum is the largest, most prominent part of your brain, right? So what is the largest part of the brain? It is nothing but the cerebrum. So is it at the seat of intelligence? So I can say if anything you are able to do, maybe your thinking, maybe your judgment, right? Memory, your solving any mathematical questions, all of them will be done by your cerebrum, right? So we can say yes, it is at the seat of intelligence. It is the largest part of the brain, largest part of the brain, right? Also, I can say it controls the voluntary activity. It controls the voluntary activity. You already know what are voluntary activities, right? Do you know what are voluntary activities? Yes, which are under our conscious control, right? Like thinking. Sorry, not thinking obviously. Like writing. I am able to write. It is under my conscious control. I can say walking. All of these are your voluntary activities, right? So all of this can be controlled by the cerebrum. Now, just like a walnut, you can break up the walnut into two parts, right? Or it is having two parts. Similarly, your brain is having two hemispheres. Half sphere. This is a complete sphere. This is hemisphere, half sphere. So basically cerebrum is also having two spheres, that is the left and the right hemispheres. Since these hemispheres belong to the cerebrum, we can call these hemispheres as cerebral hemisphere. So we have a left and a right cerebral hemisphere, right? So let's see here the left and the right cerebral hemisphere. And you could see there is a structure here. Could you see a structure here? This structure, what is this? This is nothing but corpus callosum, a tract of nerve fiber which is connecting the left and right cerebral hemisphere. Left and right cerebral hemisphere, they are connected by corpus callosum, right? So if you want, we can mention it connects left and right cerebral hemisphere, right? Clear? One more thing about the cerebrum. It is having two regions, the outer part and the inner part, right? Could you see here? This is the cerebrum, the left and the right cerebral hemisphere. The outer region looks somewhat gray. The inner region looks somewhat white. So white appears gray because it has cell bodies and dendrites in concentration, and the white matter is because of the presence of myelinated axon. So myelinated axon will be present in concentrated amount here, and in the gray matter you're going to find the, see, let's say this is the dendrite, this is the cell body, this is the axon. So this white appearance is because of the axon. So yes, gray matter because grayish appearance, white matter because of whitish appearance, right? So we can say outer region is gray in color and the inner region is called as the white matter. Also remember, the outer region can be called as the cortex and the inner part is generally called as the medulla. Outer cortex, inner medulla. Since these outer and inner parts are of cerebrum, we can call them as cerebral cortex, cerebral cortex and cerebral medulla. Cerebral medulla. Clear? One more thing we can mention here, which I was telling you, that they have, the gray is because of the cell body and dendrite. Cell body and dendrite gives the appearance of the gray, and white is because of the myelinated axon. The myelin sheath gives it that whitish appearance. Clear? Clear? Is this whole part of cerebrum clear? Also, as you see in the walnut, as you see in the cerebrum, you could see these folds, right? So these folds, they are called as sulcus and gyri. So you could see the upper part is called as the gyrus, and the lower part, the one which is furrowing inside, is called as the sulcus, right? Once we sulk, why are you sulking? Why are you sad? Why are you low? So the lower part will be sulcus. We can remember like that. Why there are folds? Because to increase the surface area. Whenever you see the fold, just relate it with the surface area, right? Let's move ahead. Okay. Now we come to the last part of the forebrain. We have already done the olfactory lobe as well as the cerebrum. The last part of the forebrain is the diencephalon. So diencephalon has two parts, that is the thalamus and the hypothalamus. Have you ever played any relay race? What happens in a relay race? Let's say A person runs and gives the baton to the B. Then B runs and gives the baton to the C. C runs and gives the baton to the D. Passing the baton. Similarly, let's say in your school you have to say something to your principal. Then you cannot go directly to the principal. Maybe you will inform it to your teacher, class teacher, and class teacher will communicate that to the principal. Similarly, if principal generally has to give any information to you guys, so the principal will give that information first to the class teacher, and class teacher will give that information to you. So basically it is the information integration unit. Similarly, that is the role of the thalamus, right? So thalamus is like, if any information is coming, we call it as a sensory. If that information is going out, we call it as a motor, right? So if any information is coming, that is the sensory or maybe motor signal from the outer region of the cerebrum, which is cerebral cortex. If anything has to come to the cerebrum, first it will reach the thalamus, then it will move towards the cerebrum. And similarly, if any information is going out, again first it will reach the thalamus and finally to the outer part. Clear? Is it making sense? For example, if sensory information is coming, right, before reaching the cerebrum, that to the outer part of the cerebrum, that is the cerebral cortex, it will first reach the thalamus. And similarly, if any motor impulse is going out, any motor information is going out, it will first reach the thalamus again. Anything coming inside or going out will be facing the thalamus, right? Next, move to hypothalamus. Now, hypothalamus controls some of the involuntary activities like hunger, like thirst, right? You feel hungry. Oh God, I am feeling hungry. You feel thirsty. Yes. So, all of that is controlled by the thalamus. Also, it controls the body temperature as well. So, we can mention that it controls the involuntary activities, that is activities which are not under your conscious control, right? For example, as I told you, like hunger, thirst and body temperature. So since it controls our body temperature, therefore hypothalamus is also called as the thermostat, because it is controlling the temperature. It is maintaining the temperature. Hence we are going to call it as thermostat. Therefore called as thermostat. Thermo means temperature. Also we can call it as the thermoregulatory center. Thermoregulatory center. It is regulating, it is controlling the temperature center of the body, because it controls the temperature. Isn't it? What it does, for example, it's very hot. It's very hot. It's very hot outside. So what you're going to do? If the temperature is very high, what you going to do? Ma'am, we produce sweat. What is the purpose of sweat? Sweat gives you a cooling effect. So basically it releases the heat. What happens when the temperature is too low? We shiver. Why we shiver? Because it will increase the body heat. It will generate that heat which will help us to fight in that particular situation. So if the temperature is too high or if it is too low during the cold time, then what happens? That yes, in the cold, what do? We produce sweat. We sweat so as to release the heat, and once the temperature is too low, we shiver so as to generate the heat. Do you remember in the starting I told you control and coordination is done by the nervous system as well as the endocrine system, and I told you that in the endocrine system there is role of hormones as well. So this hypothalamus is having a role in nervous system as well as in endocrine system. That is, it will be secreting hormones as well. So since the hormones of the hypothalamus, they are secreted by the neurons present in it, we can call such hormones as neurohormones. So we can say it secretes neurohormones because these hormones are secreted by the neurons of hypothalamus. So it is like a link between the nervous and endocrine system. So we can mention this part also, that it secretes neurohormones. Why neurohormones? Because these hormones are secreted by the neurons of hypothalamus. Therefore, we can say it acts as a link between nervous and endocrine system. Clear? Making sense to you? That was all about the cerebrum, that is the olfactory lobe, the cerebrum, and obviously we saw the thalamus and the hypothalamus. Let's move to the next part, which is the midbrain. Now what is midbrain doing? Let's say you're watching a movie and suddenly a ghost comes in front of you. What will be your reaction? Your reaction will be, right, you're going to do this, right? Or maybe let's say you are sitting in a class very quietly, and on the last seat there is a strong, very loud voice comes suddenly, like maybe like a blast sound comes suddenly. What will be your response? response will be like this, right? So, or maybe a person very beautiful, or maybe you see your favorite hero, right? Maybe Shah Rukh Khan or whatever, your favorite hero. Right, my favorite is Shah Rukh Khan, by the way. If that person is going to walk side by me, what will be my response? My response will be this, right? So this is the response due to seeing something or because of hearing something. Because of seeing something or hearing something. So these are called as auditory and visual reflexes. So there is movement of the head and neck with a response to the particularly seeing something or hearing something. So it is responsible for the auditory and visual reflexes. Clear? Next, move to the last part of the brain, that is hindbrain, which is having three parts. That is the cerebellum, which looks somewhat like a tree. Then we have the pons, and lastly the medulla. Cerebellum, pons, medulla. Right? What happens in these three parts? What do these three parts do? So the very first is cerebellum. It controls the precision of the voluntary activities. See guys, if you are walking, I told you few moments back, walking is a voluntary activity and it is controlled by cerebrum. But if I say walk in a straight line, will you be able to walk in a straight line? Yes, ma'am. Or maybe if I ask you to ride a bicycle, again, riding a bicycle, voluntary activity, but riding in a straight line is again a precision. Once you are skilling any movement, once you are refining that movement, once you are doing it with precision, that will be done by the cerebellum. Let's do one activity together. Let's close your eyes. Trust me, I'm not going to do anything else. Close your eyes. Take the tip of your index finger and try to touch it to your nose. Are you able to do it? Are you able to touch the tip of the nose with the tip of the index finger? Yes, ma'am, we are able to do it. So this precision is done by the cerebellum. Also, it controls the posture of the body, the posture which we maintain, as well as the balance of the body. Posture, balance, and precision of the voluntary activities. Right? So we can say it controls the precision of the voluntary activity, maintain the posture and the balance of the body. Posture and balance of the body, precision of voluntary activities, maybe I can say, example, walking in a straight line, riding a bicycle, picking up a pencil, etc. Picking up a pencil, etc. What was the largest part of the brain? Could you see the largest part? Obviously the cerebrum. What is the second largest? Obviously we could see clearly cerebellum. The cerebellum is the second largest part of the brain, right? So we can mention here it is the second largest part of the brain. Clear? Done? That was about cerebellum. Let's move to the pons. So pons basically controls the breathing along with the medulla. That's all about pons. Easy peasy, right? It takes part in regulation of the respiration along with medulla. Now medulla, the last part, almost the last part, end part, the backside part of the brain, the posterior most part of the brain. And what is this medulla doing? Now, this medulla is very important. If someone hit at the back from here, what happens? What happens is that you die. Because this, suppose the medulla is damaged because of any injury, this medulla part is damaged. This medulla part is damaged because of any injury. Then what happens? You are going to die because it is very, very important. It controls all the involuntary activities like It controls the involuntary activities like for example, can you think of any involuntary activities? For example, we can think of salivation, peristalsis, the movement of food within our digestive tract, the alternate contraction and relaxation was peristalsis. We can think of swallowing, right? It is also going to control the blood pressure, urination, vomiting. Yes, vomiting is also controlled by your medulla oblongata. What else can you think of? We can think that this particular thing is also responsible for urination as well, which we have already mentioned, right? Also, we can think the coughing, the sneezing. These are also controlled by your medulla, right? Etc. All of these, they are controlled by the medulla oblongata. So that was about the hindbrain, cerebellum, second largest part, makes the precision, also responsible for posture and balance. Medulla helps in breathing, and ultimately we have a medulla which is controlling all the involuntary activities. And yes, we have actually not mentioned two of the very important involuntary activities. Very important. The very first thing which we see, that is breathing rate, breathing, heart rate. All of this is also controlled. The very important is also controlled by the medulla. So that was all about your hindbrain. Let's move ahead now. Okay, let's move ahead. Okay, so now moving ahead, we have this question that how, okay, brain is doing something, our stimulus is doing something, but how exactly does our muscle move? How does exactly our muscles move, right? Okay, this is done by the brain, but how exactly I'm able to do it? How exactly I'm able to move my muscles? So basically, muscle, if we talk about the muscle, it is a tissue, and this muscle tissue is made up of the muscle cells, right? It is consisting of the muscle cell. And if we talk about the muscle cell is having some specialized protein. It has some specialized proteins, and those specialized proteins, they are called as actin and myosin. Actin and myosin. So they are arranged in a particular fashion. Let's say, guys, this is your muscles, right, which is present from here to here. Try to move it, try to move it. Could you feel the, not too much, but this movement is caused by the contraction and relaxation of the muscles. Basically, the muscle contraction means the length will be decreased. Obviously, the relaxation means little bit length will be increased. So if you feel the length will be increased and decreased in this movement. Why this movement was possible? Why this contraction and relaxation of muscle is happening? This will be because of the arrangement of these proteins. So these proteins, they change their arrangement so as to bring about the movement. So yes, these proteins, they change the shape and the arrangement, resulting in ultimately bringing about the movement. So I can say yes, the muscles have special proteins that change both their shape and the arrangement in the cell, and hence leading to some response, right? And when this happens, new arrangement of the protein give the muscle cell the shorter form. As I said, obviously once they contract, shorter form, once they relax, the longer form. So yeah, that was about it. Let's move to the next part of your central nervous system, which is obviously the spinal cord. This spinal cord. So spinal cord, again a part of the central nervous system. So any part of the, or shall I say, any information or any nerve which is coming. This is the brain. This is the spinal cord. Any brain, any information, any nerve which is coming to the brain, first it will go to the brain and again first will go to the spinal cord. So any nerves, any information has to reach the brain, it will pass through the spinal cord. Going in, going out, passing through the spinal cord, right? So I can say it consists of the nerves that carry incoming and outgoing messages between the rest of the body, right? Here, that was about the spinal cord. Let's move ahead. Now, guys, we have a good spinal cord, right? We have a good brain. We have our peripheral nervous system, the spinal nerves, the cranial nerves. We are having a nervous system, but why do we need a control and coordination by our endocrine system? What is the need of endocrine system? Why nervous system was not enough? Obviously, there must be some drawbacks, some limitations to the nervous system. Now, what are these limitations? Where our nervous system is lacking? First thing first, that the nervous system is only able to control the cells which are in connection with the neurons. So we can say this electrical impulse is not able to reach each and every cell of the body. If we want a response from each and every cell of the body, it will not be possible because it is not connected by the neurons. It will only reach, the electrical impulse will only reach to the cells which are connected to the neurons. First thing first, right? So it will reach only those cells that are connected by the nervous system and not to each and every cell in the body of animals. Second point, guys, we can say how the information is transmitted in nervous system in the form of electrical current. First, the electrical current will generate, then it will transmit. First, it will generate, then it will transmit. And mind you, it requires a lot of energy, and cell therefore cannot continuously do it. Cell cannot afford it, right? So I can say, so once an electrical impulse is generated and transmitted, the cell will take some time to rest before it can generate it another. That is simply that the cells cannot generate and transmit the impulse continuously. Clear? Hence, therefore, we need endocrine system, and in endocrine system we are not only taking the help of your hormones, right? So basically in hormones, in endocrine system, this is nothing but a chemical coordination because we are taking the help of the hormones. But in case of obviously the nervous system, there was electrical as well as chemical, right? So that was about your nervous system limitations and why do we need an endocrine system, which is nothing but a chemical coordination done with the help of chemicals, right? Chalo, let's start with it. Now, in the endocrine system, we have endocrine gland. Let's see that first, then we will come to this difference between. Let's see this first. Okay. Try to see the glands first. Now, what is a gland? Gland is nothing. It can be a cell, it can be a tissue, it can be an organ which produces some secretion and which these secretions will help you to control different functions. So, it can be a cell, can be a tissue, can be an organ which is performing a particular function by the release of some secretion. Right. Now the glands are of two types, the endocrine gland and the exocrine gland. The endocrine gland are the one which are ductless and the exocrine gland are the one which are having ducts. Let's say this is the gland, and it is producing some secretions. So it will be taken to its destination with the help of a pipe-like structure called as the duct. So these glands which have the duct, they are called as the exocrine gland, and the glands which do not have a duct. Let's say this is the gland and this gland has produced some secretions. So these secretion has to reach somewhere, has to reach to a target site. So how it will reach to the target site? It will be moving, obviously it does not have a duct, so it will be moving via the blood. So basically we can say the glands which are ductless, they are called as endocrine glands, and the glands which have the ducts, they are called as exocrine glands. Obviously generally the target where the substance has to reach, where the secretion has to reach, will be present locally. Here obviously it will be present little bit away because the secretions will be moving with the help of the blood, right? Next thing, what are the secretions? What will the endocrine gland make? It will make some chemical substances known as hormones. They release the secretions into the blood. They are ductless gland. They do not have duct. Right? Their secretion act via the duct, and their secretion is obviously non-hormonal. For example, if we talk about salivary gland, sweat gland, oil gland, or maybe our intestinal glands, all of those were nothing but the exocrine gland. Those are the secretions will contain the saliva, sweat, mucus, enzyme secretion, right? So it will contain sweat, saliva, enzyme. Hence the example are digestive juices of it. Okay. Maybe we can write the example of the gland. For example, we have sweat gland. We have our salivary gland. And if we talk about the endocrine gland, we have a pituitary gland here, thyroid gland. These all are endocrine gland. Now, do you see I have mentioned pancreas like that, okay, some part in endocrine, some part in exocrine. Why that so? Because pancreas is very unique. Pancreas, do you remember we studied in life processes where it was making pancreatic juice? You will be like, yes ma'am, it's an exocrine gland, right? Because it is making some secretions, no hormones. No hormones are made, therefore pancreas should be exocrine gland. So yes, we're going to study pancreas in the control and coordination chapter also, because this pancreas secrete hormones as well. That is, it will be delivering its secretion with the help of the duct, which is the pancreatic duct. Also, it will be making the hormones, which it will be pouring in the blood and will be traveling via the blood. So we can say pancreas here is a mixed gland, therefore present in both. So we can mention one thing here about the mixed gland, also called as heterocrine gland. The gland which is pouring the secretions into the blood as well as carrying the secretions through the duct. So we can say which is a mixture of the endocrine as well as the exocrine part. The example can be, yes, the example can be your pancreas. Can you think of any other example apart from pancreas? So we have other glands also, that is testes and ovaries. Basically our reproductive structures, our reproductive organs, our gonads. Gonads means the reproductive organs, right? These are also mixed gland. How they are mixed gland? Because both of them organ, okay, both of them produce the gametes, right? The testes produce the sperm, the ovary produce the egg. And they move via the duct, right? Testes move, the egg move via the oviduct, that is the fallopian tube. The testes produces sperm which move via the vas deferens, which is the sperm duct, right? Non-hormonal secretion, but also they secrete a hormone as well. What is that hormone? Testosterone from testes, estrogen from ovaries. We're going to study that, but for now you can remember, yes, these three glands are your mixed gland. Moving ahead, now where we were, yes, hormones only. So hormones are nothing but they are chemical substances and they are acting like a messenger. It will be carrying that information to the target organ. It is like a messenger. It is acting like a messenger. So we can say hormones is basically non-nutrient chemical substance. Non-nutrient chemical substance. Why I am calling it as a non-nutrient substance? Because they are not taken care by our diet. You cannot take it through your diet. Your body has to prepare it. Your body has to synthesize it, and hence non-nutrient chemical substance, because it is a chemical substance, right? Next point, it is required in very less amount. It is required in very less amount. The next part, obviously they are secreted by which gland? By endocrine gland. Secreted by endocrine gland. Next part is that these hormones, if they are produced in larger amount or if they are produced in lesser amount, suppose we require this much amount, if it is produced in large amount or if it is produced in lesser amount, it both will be harmful to us, right? So I can say hypersecretion. Hyper means excess, more than the sufficient amount. And hypo means deficiency is there, less amount is secreted. So I can say hyper and hyposecretion have serious consequences. It will be harmful to it. Whether it will be larger amount or whether it will be bad amount, it can create some issues in our body. Hypersecretion means excess secretion. But if we talk about the hyposecretion, it means less amount is secreted. We have deficiency of that hormone. So both can be bad for our health and hence we should take care of it. So that was about the hormones. Now coming to a difference between the nervous and endocrine system. Obviously in the nervous system it was because of the electrical as well as chemical, electrical throughout the neuron and chemical at the synapse. Very good. So it is sent as an electrical impulse along the axon and a chemical across the synapse. But endocrine system only takes place with the help of the hormones, which are nothing but chemical substances. So I can say only chemical, right? So it is sent as a chemical messenger via the blood. And obviously in the nervous system the response was so quick. Like for example, there was a hot object, so quickly you removed your hand. So basically information travels very rapidly, very quickly. But in case of our hormones, since hormones will be produced and released, traveling via the blood, then acting, it will take time, right? So information travels very slowly. So obviously nervous system, the response will be very quick, right? So we can say, yeah, the response will be very quick. The response was very quick. Information come, we removed our hand. But here the information obviously travels slowly. The response will be slow. Next thing, obviously the response was very short-lived. We just removed our hand, right? Done. But here we can, the effects are generally going to be more prolonged. For example, your height is increased. The effect is not very small. Then we can say here that yes, the information is directed to specific receptor, one or a few nerve fiber, gland cell or other neurons, but here it will be reaching to every cell, right? The information is spread throughout the body by the blood from which the target cells or organs pick it up, right? So here it is very specific here to all the cells of the body. That was the difference between the nervous system and endocrine system. Now obviously endocrine glands, which are ductless glands which pour their secretion into the blood, and the secretion of them is called as the hormones. What are the different glands present in our body? So if we look into the body of a male and if we look into the body of a female, they are going to be same. All the glands are same except of the one gland which is testes, which is only present in male, and ovary, which is only present in female. Rest all glands are the same. Testes will only be present in the human male and the ovary will only be present in the human female. Rest all the glands present in the body of a male and present in the body of the females will be same. Let's have a look into all the glands which are same, right? So in the brain we have 3 glands total. That is the hypothalamus, pineal gland and pituitary gland. Then in the neck area we have this thyroid gland. Now thyroid gland is somewhat a butterfly shaped gland. It's a butterfly shaped gland, and on the back side of the thyroid gland we have parathyroid gland. We have 4 solid structures present. These structures are nothing but parathyroid gland. This is your parathyroid gland, right, which are present on the posterior side of the thyroid gland. This is your thyroid gland. Clearly you cannot see it, but in the diagram if you see, they have shown it here, right? Then between the 2 lungs above the heart we have this gland called as thymus. Then obviously around our stomach in the bend we have the duodenum here, the pancreas here. In the bend of the duodenum we have this, suppose this is the stomach, this is the duodenum. So in the bend of the duodenum we have this gland called as pancreas. We have gland called as pancreas, which I told you is a mixed gland. Adrenal glands are like the birthday caps of the kidney. They are present on the top of the kidney, called as adrenal glands. And finally we have ovary. Here again same, testes is there. Let's study each of these glands one by one. Okay, let's focus on it. We'll start. The very first gland is hypothalamus. Now hypothalamus, it's secreting 2 types of hormone. We have already studied it in our nervous system. In the nervous system, do you remember, it was controlling hunger, thirst, temperature. Also it was secreting some hormones. Those hormones are secreted by the neurons, is called as neurohormones, and this is a link between the nervous system and endocrine system. Do you remember all of this? Let's get started. So basically hypothalamus, it secretes 2 types of hormones. It secretes 2 types of hormones which are releasing hormone and inhibiting hormone. Releasing hormone and inhibiting hormone. Releasing and inhibiting hormone. What are these 2 types of hormone doing? Let us find out. So let me tell you one example of a releasing hormone. One example, very famous example of a releasing hormone is GHRH. GHRH. Growth hormone, releasing hormone. Growth hormone, the name itself suggests you what it is going to do. Okay, so growth hormone, releasing hormone. And finally we have an inhibiting hormone also. For example, we have GHIH, which is nothing but growth hormone. Yes, you guessed it right. Inhibiting hormone. Growth hormone, inhibiting hormone. Let us see what are these 2 hormones gonna do. What is the function of these hormones? So these hormones are going to go and act on the pituitary. They're going to go and act on another gland present in the brain itself called as pituitary gland. Okay. Now I have like, you know, let's say I am here and I am like very scared for something, and I'll be like, you know, I'll be asking my friend, you know, if there is a danger, show me the red sign. If there is a danger, show me, or no danger, show me a green sign, something like that, right? So if the danger is there, maybe I'll sit quiet. If the danger is not there, maybe I'll dance, right? So depending on that, if I get the red signal, okay, sit quiet. If I get the green signal, okay, I have to dance, right? So similarly, pituitary depends upon the signal which it receives from the hypothalamus. What do I mean by it? Let's have a look at it. Let's say, look at the name, GHRH. Growth hormone releasing hormone. What this hormone will be causing? It will be causing the release of the growth hormone. Growth hormone, releasing hormone. So once this hormone is secreted by the hypothalamus, it will I'm really sorry, guys. Yeah, so by the way, if this hormone is secreted by the hypothalamus, it will come to the pituitary and it will cause the release of the growth hormone. It will cause the release of the growth hormone. That is, yes, a green signal is there. But if the red signal is there, growth hormone, inhibiting means to stop. So once this hormone comes to the pituitary, there will be no growth hormone release. There will be no growth hormone release. So I can say pituitary is controlled by the hypothalamus. If the releasing hormone comes, it will stimulate the release of the hormones by the pituitary gland. But if a inhibiting hormone is coming, it will inhibit the secretion of the hormones from the pituitary gland. Making sense? Let's move forward towards the pituitary gland. Now, pituitary gland is a very small pea-sized gland. Very small pea-sized gland. Now, this gland is called other glands. Right? For example, guys, a teacher, a master is there in your class. So, a master or the teacher is controlling all of you students. But who controls a master? A master is controlled by, a teacher is controlled by, let's say, a principal. Similarly, if I say pituitary controls all the other glands, so can I say that pituitary is a master gland? And who is the master of pituitary? Who was controlling the pituitary gland? Hypothalamus. So I can call hypothalamus as the master of master gland. Because it is even the master of master gland. Who is master gland? Master gland was pituitary, and it is also the master of pituitary gland. Since it is the master of, it is controlling pituitary gland, hence we say it is a master of master gland, and we can call our pituitary as master of master gland. You can call pituitary as master gland. Hypothalamus is master of master gland. So pituitary is master gland. Why it is master gland? Because it controls the secretion of other gland, or we can say function of other endocrine glands. What are the other endocrine glands? Can you think of some example? Do you remember the diagram which we just saw, for example? Example, adrenal gland. Example, thyroid gland. Example, testes, ovaries, etc. Right? Is controlling the secretions from the other gland also, hence called as the master gland. Now, pituitary gland produces a hormone called as the growth hormone, and as the name suggests, it will be causing the growth of the body. It will be increasing the length of the bone, of the cartilage, of the muscles, right? So basically, it will be causing the growth, and where growth exactly? Bones, muscle, cartilage, the soft tissues. It will be basically causing the growth of the body, hence the name growth hormone. But what happens if it is secreted in excess amount or if it is secreted in very less amount? So this happens. So obviously, if in the case of growth hormone, there is hypo or hyper secretion, and we are talking this in childhood, once you are a child. So during your childhood age, once you need maximum growth, during your childhood, if there is hypo means very less secretion of the growth hormone, very less growth hormone secretion. There is, we can say, deficiency, very less secretion. What will happen? The person height will remain very small. The person will be very small height. So small height can be called as the dwarf, right? It will very small heighted person, the person will remain dwarf. Dwarf means short heighted. Remember in our heredity also we discussed that how the dwarf means a small part, small short heighted person, and hence this situation, this is called as dwarfism. Right? If the person height is very small, we can call it as the dwarfism. But yes, if the secretion is too much, if the secretion is very excess secretion, too much secretion of growth hormone during the childhood, then what happens? Obviously, more the growth hormone, more will be the height. The person will be giant-like. More will be the height. It will be a giant-like. Hence, this situation is called as gigantism. Right? So, we have dwarfism, small height, gigantism, large height, right? So, basically, gigantism and more, I should say, abnormally tall height. Not normally tall height, but abnormally tall height, very long height, right? Okay, that was about it. Next, moving to the thyroid gland, butterfly shaped gland, and let me tell you, it is the largest endocrine gland as well. It is the largest endocrine gland. Also, we can say it is a butterfly shaped gland. Right? Now, if we look into it, where this gland is present, it is present below your larynx and just in front of the trachea, and below your larynx, thyroid gland is present. Now this gland, it secretes a hormone called as thyroxine. So it secretes a hormone called as T3 or T4. The T4 is called as thyroxine. Nothing but your thyroid hormone. So if you see these words T3, T4, do not get confused. These are also nothing but your other name of thyroxine, which is thyroid hormone. So it secretes this hormone called as T3, T4, and remember this T4 is called as thyroxine, or other name is thyroid hormone. Now, what is the function of this thyroid hormone? What is this doing? Before we start that, remember, for the formation of this thyroxine, we require iodine. Iodine is required for the formation of this hormone. What do we require for the formation? Iodine. Okay. Now, going towards the function of the thyroid hormone, which is thyroid. Obviously, the very first thing, it controls the metabolism. It controls the metabolism. What is metabolism? Sum total of all the chemical reactions occurring in our body, be it the anabolism where things were synthesized or the catabolism where things were broken down. Do you remember life processes chapter? Yes or no? We discussed it there. So it controls the metabolism of carbohydrate, proteins and fats. So the very first point which is listed here in front of you, that it controls the carbohydrate, protein and fat metabolism. So obviously it will be controlling your physical as well as your mental health, right? So it will be responsible for your controls the physical and your mental growth. Physical and mental growth. So yes, if thyroxine is not there, you are mentally going to be retarded, right? Next thing, what is this image you're going to see here? What is this thing showing you? Yes, we are seeing a tadpole which is turning into an adult. Tadpole turning into an adult. This process was called as metamorphosis, right? Tadpole turning to an adult. This process is called as metamorphosis, and metamorphosis, let me tell you, again requires thyroid hormone. So thyroid hormone is also responsible for the metamorphosis of tadpole into an adult frog. So if in the water there is no iodine, in the water where tadpole is there, there is no iodine. No iodine means no thyroid hormone. No thyroid hormone means no metamorphosis. So a tadpole will remain a tadpole, right? We can mention here the third point, which is it is responsible for metamorphosis. It is also responsible for metamorphosis, which is nothing conversion of a tadpole to a adult frog. Tadpole into a adult frog is also done by your thyroid hormone. The next thing, that it is also controlling your BMI, your basal metabolic rate, basically how much calories you are requiring so as to control your normal body functions, right? So I can say it controls the or regulates the BMR as well. Basal metabolic it is also controlling that, right? I hope it is clear about the thyroid hormone. Let's move to the next thing. Let's say you have deficiency of iodine in your diet. Now what will happen? Iodine is not there, then the thyroid hormone obviously will also be very less. Thyroid hormone will not be forming. Now what will thyroid gland do? Thyroid gland will now enlarge in size, and this enlargement can be seen through the neck also, in the hope, in the motto that it can produce some thyroid hormone, but obviously it is not possible since there is no iodine in your diet. No iodine situation can lead to this situation where there is swollen neck, and this situation is called as goiter. So basically goiter is due to deficiency of iodine in the diet, and one of the symptoms in this disease is swollen neck. So if there is deficiency of iodine in the diet, then we can say the thyroid gland will enlarge. Thyroid gland will enlarge, and hence we can say it can be protrude. It will come out through your neck. It can be seen protruding the neck, and hence we can say the neck becomes swollen. The neck becomes swollen. You can see here, and hence it is suggested that we should consume the iodized salt. Have you seen any advertisement where they ask you, "Aapke namak mein iodine hai?" Right? Something like this happens. "Aapke namak mein iodine hai." Why they are asking? Why do we require iodine? Now do you know why do we require iodine? So we say yes, salt is consumed by almost everyone, and hence we can say it is preferable to have iodized salt. Right? We can say therefore advised have iodized salt. Clear? Making sense to you guys what is happening here? Let's move ahead towards the birthday cap of the kidney. So birthday cap of the kidney is called as adrenal gland, and again the adrenal gland is divided into two parts. Outer part is called as the cortex, inner part is medulla. Always generally the outer part is cortex and inner is medulla, just like we saw in the brain part also, right? So we have a cortex, we have a medulla. So basically the medulla secretes a hormone, or shall I say the adrenal gland secretes a hormone called as adrenaline, or also called as epinephrine. Have you heard of this situation called as, okay, I have an adrenaline rush. There was this exam and I had an adrenaline rush. I have to catch a flight and I had an adrenaline rush. Have you ever heard these names? Adrenaline, also called as epinephrine, the hormone secreted by the adrenal gland. Now, let me tell you, it is an emergency hormone. Let's say there is a snake in front of you. So what will be your response? Or maybe you have to catch a flight because you're getting late. What will be your response? Or maybe there is, we can say you're fighting with someone, right? Your brother is like, "I want more Maggie." You'll be like, "I want more Maggie." So there's a fight. So basically during the fighting with your friend, there is a flight to catch, or in a fright situation, in a scary situation. Right? So we can say it is a 3F hormone. That is, it will be acting during the 3F condition, which is, what are these 3F condition? Fight, flight, and fright. Fight, flight, and fright. So basically all of these are nothing but emergency situation, stressful situation. So I can say it is a emergency hormone, or we can say stress hormone, the hormone which acts during the stressful situation. Right? For example, there is a scary situation, there is a fight situation, or maybe you are catching a flight. Any of these scary situations, you are sitting in any exam and you don't know anything. A scary situation. What happens in all? Let's say you are fighting with someone. What do you need? Let's say I am fighting with someone, I punch someone. I shouldn't be doing it, but let us say I have done that, or maybe I have seen a snake. What I do if I see a snake? I will run. Right? I will run. So once I am running, any sort of movement is done by the muscle. Right? So my muscle needs energy to move. And from where do we get our energy? Remember the life process chapter. Yes, ma'am, glucose is broken down to need to get energy. From where do we get the glucose? From where do we get the nutrients? Ma'am, through the blood. So I can say the heart has to beat faster so as to supply those nutrients to the muscles. So the very first thing, my heartbeat will increase. Also, so as to break down the glucose, we require oxygen. From where do we get the oxygen? By breathing. So I can say the breathing rate will also increase. Something like this, right? The breathing rate will also increase during this stressful situation. Also, do we say, your face has turned pale? चेहरे का रंग उड़ गया. Your face has turned pale. Why? Because we do not want that blood to go to skin. First thing, obviously, we want it to be delivered to our heart, to our brain, to our muscles, who require it more during that time, and also to the skin decreases, because first thing, we do not want it to deliver at that time, because major function is done by the muscles, heart, and we can say the brain during those stressful situations. Also, once you're going to fall, the blood out will be there, the blood will be oozing out. not want that much blood loss also. So we can say to the skin, blood will be less. Also, we can say the glucose is stored in the body of a human. In the plants, it was stored in the form of starch, but in humans, it is stored in the form of glycogen. So I can say glycogen will break down into glucose so as to give you energy. Glucose will further provide you energy. So I can say yes, the heartbeat will increase so that more oxygen and nutrients to the blood to the digestive skin system and the skin will reduce due to the contraction of the muscles around the arteries of the organs. These diverts the blood to our muscles, and also the breathing rate also, we can say, increases. Suppose if we want more blood to go somewhere, this is the blood vessel, right? And this is the diameter. Guys, let us say we have this blood vessel which looks somewhat like a cylinder, and if we see the cross section of it, it is somewhat circular. Right? If we want more blood to send to a particular place, so the blood vessel will dilate. The diameter of the blood vessel will increase. If we want less blood to be sent to a particular place, it will constrict. That is, the diameter will decrease. That is what it is mentioned here, that the contraction of the muscle, basically the blood vessel diameter will decrease if we want less blood to be sent. Okay. Making sense, yes or no? Also, we can say here the glycogen will be broken into the glucose so that glucose is used to make energy. It will be broken down to make energy. Also, I can say your pupils, the aperture through the light enters. Right? You want to see your way clearly once you're running. So, your pupils are going to dilate so that the light enters properly. You can mention that also. These are the aperture are going to the which light enters. Clear? What is the function of adrenaline? How it is helping in our situation? Very, very, very important. Right? This also. It is very, very, very important. Many a times question comes that this is the serious situation, this is the emergency situation, which gland will secrete which hormone, what will happen, how this will help. Very, 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 very important, right? Let's move towards the next gland, which is the pancreas. Now, if we move towards the, pineal gland, I guess we missed, sorry. So pineal gland, basically again a gland present in your brain, and it is controlling the sleep-wake cycle of the body. It controls the sleep-wake cycle of the body. You could see it's a very, very, very small gland. It controls the sleep-wake cycle of the body. Right? For example, you generally wake up at 6 and you generally sleep at 10. So if it is 6 p.m. 6 a.m. and your alarm is not ringing, it is 10 p.m. you have not seen the watch also, the clock also, so you will feel sleepy at that time, and at 6 automatically your eyes open, something like that, right? So this is controlled by the pineal gland. Not much we have to see about it. Let's move to the pancreas. Now pancreas, as I have told you, it is a mixed gland. It is a mixed gland. It is a heterocrine gland. It is having the endocrine part as well as the exocrine part. So endocrine and exocrine is there. Endocrine part is called as the islet of Langerhans. Islet of Langerhans. So basically, this islet of Langerhans has 3 types of cell: alpha cell, beta cell, delta cell. Alpha cell, beta cell and delta cell. So alpha cell secretes a hormone called as glucagon. Beta cell secretes a hormone which is called as insulin. And lastly, delta cell secretes a hormone called as somatostatin. What are these 3 hormones doing? See, these 2 hormones, the glucagon and insulin, they are antagonistic. Antagonistic means they function opposite to each other. they are antagonistic, they are function opposite to each other, they have opposite functions. What do I mean by it? See guys, everything in your body is under control. Let's say your temperature is 37 degrees Celsius. If it is increases, it's an issue, decrease, it's an issue. So basically everything should be in your control level. For example, we had blood pressure also. It was 120/80, right? It should be that much only. If it is increases, it's an issue. If it is decreases, that's an issue. Similarly, in your body, in your blood, the glucose level is also should be constant. If it is increasing, it's an issue. If the blood glucose level decreases, it's an issue. So basically, what is insulin doing? So insulin decreases the blood glucose level if it has increased. What do I mean by it? Let's say this is the normal level of the glucose. If the glucose level increases, let's say you have eaten any food, then what will happen? The glucose level will increase. So what it is going to do? It is going to decrease it so that the glucose level is now in the normal range. What is glucagon going to do? So glucagon, again, let's say this is your normal blood glucose level. If let's say you have not eaten since a very long time and you are exercising, slowly and slowly, your blood glucose level will decrease. So what is glucagon is going to do? It is going to increase the level so that now again the glucose level is normal. So both of them are helping in regulating, in controlling the blood glucose level. One is decreasing it, one is increasing it, right? So insulin basically, it decreases the blood glucose level. It decreases the blood glucose level, right? Obviously, if the glucose amount is more in the blood, it will divert it to the liver so that the glucose can be converted into glycogen, right? So it will send the glucose. Second, let me rewrite it. It will be sending the blood glucose to your liver so that in the liver, what can happen? The glucose can turn into can be stored, right? And just the opposite, as I told you, that the insulin will glucagon, which will actually increase the blood glucose level. It will increase the blood level. And somatostatin, basically it will inhibit the secretion of these hormones. It will inhibit the secretion of the insulin and the glucagon. That was about the pancreas. But what happens if this insulin is secreted in lesser amount, right? There is deficiency of insulin. It is called as diabetes mellitus. Deficiency of insulin. Okay, now we know if insulin is lesser in amount, what will happen? If insulin is less, what was the function of insulin? Insulin was decreasing the blood glucose level. Now, if there is no insulin, the blood glucose level will remain here only. The blood glucose level will increase, right? So we can say it will lead to increase of the blood glucose level. So much that this will be also eliminated in the urine. So urine will contain glucose. Urine will contain glucose. Who will remove large amount of water. The urine will also become very much diluted. The urine will also become very much diluted. Clear? And lastly, I can mention about diabetes mellitus, how you can treat it, how this can be treated, the treatment. So basically, yes, we can give insulin injections. We can give insulin injections so as to take care of this insulin deficiency. Clear? Is it making sense to all what is diabetes mellitus and how we can take care of it? Mellitus means honey-like, because since it is having glucose in the urine which tastes sweet, right? Let's move towards the gonads. Now gonads are the reproductive organs, and again the mixed gland, testes in the males, ovaries in the female. We have seen already the chapters reproduction, and here I told you, remember that testes, what is the function of testes? Helping in sperm formation. So basically testes secrete a hormone called as testosterone, and ovary secretes a hormone called as estrogen as well as progesterone. Now, testosterone is a hormone which is responsible for the secondary sexual characteristics in the case of males, like there is beard, there is mustaches, there is muscular body, again all the things which we saw in reproduction chapter, also the sperm formation, right? So I can say here two functions: secondary sexual characters in male at the time of puberty. Remember this chapter? Do you remember or not? Right? I have already told you what are the symptoms, not the symptoms, what are the characteristics which we saw during the puberty. So I'm not writing it again. And also we can say sperm formation. Here also we can say estrogen function is secondary, 2-degree secondary. Secondary sexual character in females at the time of puberty. And also we can say oogenesis, formation of egg. Oogenesis, formation of egg. Spermatogenesis, formation of the sperm. And lastly, progesterone is a hormone which is maintaining the pregnancy. It is helpful during the pregnancy in the case of females, right? So that was about our gonads. Let's move ahead to the next topic. Okay, so moving ahead, let's look into the coordination in plants. Obviously, plants do not have a nervous system, but they do hormones so as to coordinate different functions in their body, right? So they do not have the nervous system like animals, but yes, they are going to be having the hormones. And I have already told you the nervous system was quick, but the hormone is quite slow. The action is quite slow. So I can say their response is going to be quite slow as compared to the nervous system, right? Since they only secrete the hormone. Now, if we look into the coordination in plants, we have to take care of two topics, that is movement as well as we're going to take care of the hormone. Let's get started first with the movement in the plant. So basically, plant movements are of two types, that is the directional movement and the non-directional movement. The name of the directional movement is also called as the tropic movement, and the non-directional movement is called as the nastic movement. And this is going to be independent on the growth. This is dependent on the growth. Oh my God, so many things. First thing first, let's start one by one. The tropic movement is dependent on the growth. So basically, what are these movements? These movements will be in response to a stimulus. Let's say the stimulus might be the light, stimulus might be the touch, stimulus might be the chemical. So because of these different stimulus, there will be some type of movement. Because of the stimulus, there will be some type of movement. So if we look into the tropic movements, these are directional movement. Why directional? Because the movement will either towards the direction of the stimulus or away from the direction of the stimulus. So why we are using this word directional? Because it will be either, the movement will be either towards or away from the stimulus. towards or away from the stimulus. Hence the word directional. And obviously here we're going to see some growth, because we're going to see that there are some hormones are there. So there will be some growth involved, right? Basically there is a hormone, a plant hormone called as auxin, which causes the cell growth. So basically because of the growth of the cell, see, suppose this is the plant body. If I am saying it is growing, so basically it will be increasing the length, and we can see it is increasing the length, and some growth is there. So basically these are going to be dependent in growth. Now ma'am, what all have you told us? How because of a hormone the growth will be there? How because of a hormone a movement will be there? We're going to discuss that in detail, right? But obviously we're going to see some growth, and wherever the growth is there, can I say these are going to be non-reversible? They cannot be reversed back. How can you reverse a growth? You cannot. And obviously if growth is there, it is going to be much slower. These movement, obviously whenever you see grow, have you grown from your baby age to this age very quickly? Has your height increased like within few seconds? No, right? So we can say these are comparatively slower. These are comparatively slower, right? Clear? What are the types of the tropic movement? Phototropism, geotropism, 𝐑𝐄𝐿, hydrotropism, thigmotropism, right? So we have this word here, photo. Photo means light. So if the stimulus is light, then we call this movement as phototropism. If the stimulus is gravity, we call such movement as geotropism. If the stimulus is chemical, chemo means chemical, we call it as the chemotropism. If the stimulus is water, we're going to call it as the hydrotropism. And if the stimulus is touch or contact, then we're going to call it as the thigmotropism. Clear? So with respect to the different stimulus, we have different types of tropic movement. All of them are showing some growth. They will be either towards or away from the stimulus. They are going to be non-reversible, and they are going to be slow. But there is another type of movement also, which is nastic movement. The nastic movements are non-directional. That is, it is not in the direction of the stimulus, neither towards nor away, not related to the stimulus direction. Okay? I'll be like, ma'am, how towards or away? Again, as we're going to dig deep into it, it will be making more sense to you. Just wait for some time, right? Next is obviously independent on growth. Here, the hormone as such will be taking place. No, will be there. And how these movements take place? These movements are due to change in turgor pressure. What do I mean by it? Change in the turgor pressure. Let us say this is a cell. Let us say this is the cell. So if in the cell water enters, what happens to the cell? The cell will swell. It will become turgid. The cell will swell. So simply how much amount of water is there in the cell. So if obviously water is entering into the cell will swell. But if we say water moves out of the cell, so we can say it will just a second, guys. It will shrink. Once the water moves out of a cell, it will shrink, and once the water enters into the cell, it will swell. So basically, the amount of water in the cell will determine the shape of the cell, swell or the shrink position. So this is actually responsible for the movement. Obviously, since it is independent on growth, no growth will be taking place. Obviously, it is going to be reversible. It is going to be reversible, and one more thing I can find out that it is going to be quite fast. Very famous example is seismonasty or thigmonasty. Seismo means shock. Seismo means shock. For example, if you touch the leaves of a touch-me-not plant, right? Here you could see a touch-me-not plant. Chui-mui plant. Have you heard of this word, chui-mui? And also, this is also called as Mimosa pudica. The scientific name is Mimosa pudica. Right? So basically, this touch-me-not plant, chui-me plant or Mimosa pudica, if you touch this plant, the leaves of a plant, the leaves will droop down. The leaves will droop down. Could you see here, after the touch, the leaves are drooping down? So either due to the touch or due to the shock. Why I have mentioned seismonasty? Seismo means shock. That either you're going to bring a lighted candle towards it, then also it is going to show the same response as you were touching it. So because of bringing a lighted candle also, the response will be same. Let's move ahead. Alright, I hope it is clear. Let's make it more fixable in your mind by discussing the difference between the two. So obviously tropic movements are directional movement, nastic movements are non-directional movement, right? Next we saw that yes, this is because of some growth, and here these are generally because of some turgor pressure. And lastly, we have seen some examples like phototropism, geotropism, and here we saw of a mimosa plant, touch me not. Now let's discuss the tropic movement types in detail. The very first thing is phototropism. I told you tropic movement with respect to light. If the stimulus is light, let's say the light is only coming from the one side, right? Let's say this is your plant and you have kept it near the window. Then what happens? Just try to understand it, right? Suppose this is the plant and the light is coming only from one side, then what will happen? So basically we have a hormone called as auxin, which is present at the tip of the plant, and this hormone is called as the auxin, which is present at the tip of the shoot. So once this plant is receiving the light from one side, what happens is this auxin will diffuse towards the shady side. It will diffuse towards the shady side. What is the shady side? So it will be moving towards this shady side. This is the shady side. It will diffuse towards the shady side, that is the one which is not receiving the sunlight. The one which is not receiving the sunlight. As a result, we can say the cells, this auxin causes, by the way, the cell growth. So we can say the more cell growth can be seen on the shady side, more cell growth is there. Suppose this side is just growing, becoming heavy. So obviously after some time it will just bend on the other side, right? Just imagine if there will be more cell growth here, it will become comparatively heavier. It will bend towards the side. So we can say ultimately going to find it is going to bend towards the light, right? So this is what is explained here, which you could see here. When growing plants, they detect the light, a hormone called as auxin, which is synthesized at the shoot tip, which helps the plant to grow, the cells to grow longer. The light coming from one side of the plant will diffuse towards the shady side, and hence the auxin stimulates to grow more on the shady side, and ultimately the plant appears to bend towards light. One thing, remember, could you see the shoot part? The shoot part is moving towards light. It moved towards light. It moved towards light. This is in the towards the direction of the stimulus. What was the stimulus? Stimulus was light. Whenever the movement is towards the stimulus, we call such movement as positive tropic movement. So I can call such type of movement as positive phototropism. Positive phototropism. Since it will be towards the stimulus, and when away from the stimulus, negative phototropism. So I can say roots, they are moving away from the light, away from the stimulus, so roots will be showing negative phototropism. I can mention this as well here, that roots move away from the light, and hence we can call it as negative phototropism. Shoots, they show positive phototropism, and roots, they show negative phototropism. I hope it makes sense to you. Next we move to geotropism. Geo means gravity. So here the stimulus is gravity. Clearly we see that the roots, they move towards the gravity, hence positive geotropism, and the shoot, they move away from the gravity, hence negatively phototropic. We can mention move towards the gravity, and the root move towards the gravity, and the shoot move away from the gravity, hence negative. Whenever away, then we say negative. Whenever towards the stimulus, we say positive. Clear? They generally give you the diagram and they ask you that which one is correct, right? In the previous year exam, there was a diagram like this. Shoot was shown here, root was also shown here, and other options were there. You were supposed to the right answer. But I hope it's making sense. Hydrotropism, hydro means water. So we see that yes, wherever water will be there, let's say you have taken a tank, you have filled with the soil, and you have kept a porous spot. You have kept a porous spot, it have pores in it through which the water is leaking. So you're going to find that your plant roots will move towards the water. So I can say here again that roots, they are positive or negative? Positive hydrotropism, or we can say positive hydrotropic movement, one or the same thing, because it moved towards the water. Clear? Moving towards the next. Chemo means chemical. So do you remember while we were discussing reproduction in plants, I told you this tube called as pollen tube, it is moving towards the ovule because present in the ovule there are some cells which release some chemicals. So once the ovule cells, the cells of the ovules, they release some chemicals, the pollen tube will grow towards the stimulus, again positive, right? So this is the example for it, and in response to chemicals, chemotropism. Lastly, thigmotropism. Thigmo means touch or contact. So this is the stimulus here. So you could see the pea plant or the pumpkin, the climbers are there which are climbing like this. So what happens? Suppose this is a support. There is a support here. And our tendril is growing. Right? So where will the oxygen diffuse? Again, the oxygen will diffuse towards the side which is away from the contact. Oxygen diffuse towards the side away from contact. So obviously there will the more cell growth there. Where the oxygen will be there. Oxygen causes the cell growth. So I can say therefore more growth of cell towards the side which is away from the contact. As a result, what will happen? The tendril will bend. The tendril will coil around the support. Same concept, guys, same concept, right? Auxin will move generally away from the stimulus, right? The stimulus was touch, it was moving away. Similarly, during the light concept, it was moving towards the shady side, right? So this happens when tendril comes in contact. Whenever a tendril comes in contact with the support, then what happens? That the auxin will move towards the side which is away from the contact. More cell growth will be there. Hence, we can say it will bend. It will coil around. Lastly, I have a table which summarizes everything. Phototropism related to the light, geotropism gravity, chemotropism chemical, hydrotropism water, thigmo touch or contact. The examples, for example, in the phototropism, the shoot moved towards the light, right? Then in the geotropism, we saw the roots move towards the gravity. Chemotropism, growth of pollen tube towards the ovule. Hydrotropism, the roots are moving towards the water. Thigmotropism is tendril coiling around the support. Right? That are all the plant movements. Let's lastly move towards our last topic for today, which is plant hormones. So plant hormones are also called as phytohormones, or also we can call them as plant growth regulators. Plant growth regulators. Obviously, as the name suggests, that these are the hormones which are secreted in less amount so as to control the different functions of the plant. So we can mention it that these are the chemical substances which are controlling the growth and development of the plant. Right? Now there are total 5 plant hormones which are mentioned here. Auxin is our very first plant hormone. So auxin, we have already seen, it will cause the growth of the cell as well as it will help in the bending. We have just seen it, right? We just saw it. It helps in the bending of the plant towards the light. Also growth in the tips. Also we can say it will cause the cell growth. What do I mean by cell growth? Let's say the cell size is this much. It will increase the cell size. It will cause the cell growth. Next is cytokinin. C for cytokinin, C for cell division. So it will be causing the cell division. So obviously where this hormone will be found? It will be found where more amount of cell division will be occurring. That is, it will be found in the areas of the fruits and seeds. So they are present in the greater concentration in the areas of the where the more cell division is required, basically the fruit and the seed. Next plant hormone we have is gibberellin. Gibberellin is responsible for elongation of the stem. It will increasing the stem height, stem length. Right? Lastly, we have abscisic acid and ethylene. Abscisic acid is a hormone which is actually inhibiting the growth. Right? It will inhibit the growth. Rest all were generally promoting the growth. I can say this hormone, it inhibits the growth. It is a hormone which is required during the stress situation, hence called as stress hormone. What was the stress hormone in the case of humans? It was adrenaline, but in the case of plants, it is abscisic acid. So, for example, what is the stressful situation? Maybe the situation for the seed, right? What is germination, conversion of seed into a baby plant? Now, this germination requires proper condition. Let us say the condition is very much adverse. The condition is adverse. The condition is unfavorable for the seed. Will the seed germinate? No. So, during those stressful conditions, it will prevent the germination. Also, guys, during the drought situation, drought means the water is less. During water scarcity condition, If water is less, again a stressful condition. Do you want, already water is less, do you want more water to be lost from your body? No. So how the water is lost through the plant body? Through the stomata. So obviously what is going to do? It is going to close the stomata so as to reduce the transpiration. And lastly we have ethylene here, which is responsible for the ripening, right? Your fruit ripens, for example, green tomato turning into a red, or maybe banana ripens. All of that is possible because of ethylene, right? It is a gaseous hormone. It's a gaseous hormone. Also, it causes the falling of the leaves. It causes the falling of the leaves as well. Right? So yeah, that was all about it. That was all of the hormones. Let's move towards the question. Okay, name 2 tissues that provide control and coordination in animals. So we can say yes, we have an endocrine system and nervous system. Endocrine and nervous. Right? Nervous tissue is there, nervous system is there, as well as endocrine system. Next question. Name one gustatory receptor. Gustatory receptor is for taste, present in our tongue. Name one olfactory receptor. Olfactory receptor responsible for the smell, present in our nose. By the way, these all are previous year question. None of them is a question which I have taken from here or there. All of these have come in your previous year board exams only. So please focus on this. So they are asking for what is A and B. A is obviously the cell body. And what is B, guys? B is axon. How is spinal cord protected? We just discussed a few moments back. Vertebral column. Right? Okay, next question. Okay, I'm going to give you this as homework. These are with respect to, this question is with respect to the different parts of the brain and its functions. Posture and balance of the body is controlled by cerebellum. We discussed it. Involuntary actions, again, you can easily do it. Try to do it. Giving you it as a homework. A squirrel in a scary situation. I told you they give you this type of question. The body has to prepare either for fight or to run. State the immediate changes that takes place in the body so that squirrel is able to fight or run. So yes, during this situation, adrenaline is secreted. And adrenaline is secreted from which gland? It will be secreted from the adrenal gland. And what will be the function of the adrenaline? We can write it down. The heart rate increases, the breathing rate increases, all of this will happen. The blood supply to the skin decreases, all of that, you can do it. Why is chemical communication better than the electrical communication? We can say simply the limitations of nervous system. We can mention here the limitations of nervous system, right? Limitation of nervous system. Giving you this as homework again, you will be able to write it. We have discussed because it is not going to reach each and every part of the body, each and every cell of the body. A doctor advised a person to take injection of insulin. Insulin's injection will be given once the glucose level will be high, right? So where it is, yeah, sugar level is high. Glucose is nothing but sugar, right? Which hormone is responsible for the changes noticed in females at the time of puberty? I told you estrogen. Dwarfism results due to the deficiency of which hormone? Due to the deficiency of growth hormone. Sugar level, blood sugar level rises due to deficiency of which hormone? If there is deficiency of insulin. Iodine is necessary for the synthesis of, obviously, thyroxine hormone. Easy peasy, right? We have discussed everything. Name the, so easy. You will be able to do it, right? You will be able to do it. Try to focus on it. You will be able to do it. Movement of shoot towards the light is nothing but phototropism. Again, we have discussed it. Try to do it. Again, a homework. We have discussed it. What causes the growth of the stem cell division? Again, homework. So yeah, that was all about this in this chapter called as control and coordination. We started with how the nervous system functions, what are the different parts of nervous system. We saw brain in detail. We saw the 3 parts of brain: forebrain, midbrain, hindbrain. Then we moved towards the spinal cord and lastly towards the peripheral nervous system. Also, we saw the endocrine system, different endocrine glands, and lastly, we moved to coordination in plants, where we saw 2 topics: plant hormones and plant movements, be it the nastic or the tropic movements. At last, we saw a few of the questions. Try to solve the questions which I gave you as homework. If you find any issues, I am here for you. You can write down in the comment section so I can check it and I can help you with all of those queries. Do let me know if you face any. Thank you so much for your time, guys. Keep learning, keep shining, and stay awesome.